It's Wardlaw at the other end. 3 goals in the final term. And now the final say on the defensive goal line. St Kilda with one of the great comebacks in AFLW history. They come from 27 points down and score their 3rd straight win.
Alrighty, hello, good evening. It is Tuesday, the 30th of September. We are here to record the CREEDCAST. Well, I am here solo tonight. And before we get into anything else, I will just play a short little announcement from Jamie as to why I am solo tonight. It is very, very good stuff. So let's hear from Jamie here for the next minute or so.
G'day, Creed fam. Jamie here with a very special announcement. In the wee hours of the 30th of September, my lovely partner Lucy gave birth to a beautiful baby boy, my son Noah, and he has come into the world happy and safe and healthy, most of all. I'm going to be taking some podcast paternity leave for a little bit, so I'll be leaving the podcast in the very capable hands of Dave while we get used to life with another little one in our house. Just wanted to say I really appreciate all the support from everyone so far. I do aim to be back up and running with Dave to round out the AFLW season, but just still wanted to take the opportunity to thank everyone who jumped on board this year and followed the journey both with the men's and the women's season. Just quickly on the women's game last weekend against St Kilda, wasn't that fucking shit? I was having a bad day as it was, and that last quarter didn't really help. But stick with the girls. They're a young side. They're going to need all the support they can get this upcoming weekend, and I'm sure Dave will break it all down like he usually does or usually did on his own prior to me joining the pod. I'm going to hand it back over, leave you with it. But, yeah, just really appreciate everyone and wanted to provide a little special announcement. So thanks, guys. I'll catch you around soon. Go the power.
Yes, thank you for Jamie for popping that little audio note through for us. He's had obviously a very, very eventful day. He and his wonderful partner Lucy, and a big day for their family. Obviously, young Peyton as well, welcoming little brother Noah into the family. So, yeah, right. I was having a fine day anyway today, but when I got that text from Jamie earlier today, it really, really just put a spring in my step today. It's obviously been in the works for a while. We've known it was coming, but I was still like a lovely surprise. Shout out to them. Jamie's obviously those who listen to the podcast enough will kind of catch the little bits of just how proud of a father he is, and how much he loves his family. So it's a really, really special day for them. I'm really, really glad to hear all are doing well. And, Jamie did text me on Sunday and say, fuck, I'm not looking forward to reviewing that game, like in the aftermath of what that horrible fourth quarter collapse was. And so kudos to Lucy for just impeccable timing, because as we know, everything revolves around Port Adelaide football, and ergo then revolves around our podcast. And she just intuitively knew that Jamie did not want to record much about this game tonight, and decided to perfectly time the arrival of little Noah. So well done, Lucy, for timing that well. And Jamie's, I'm sure, very, very glad, mostly because he doesn't have to talk about this, but probably a little bit too because he's really excited to welcome his new child into the world. So, no, seriously, big congratulations to them, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more about that journey as whenever he gets back onto the podcast. But yes, he is on a short-term little bit of podcast paternity leave, well earned for him and the family. And take care of yourselves, guys. And we look forward to having you back on the podcast soon. But certainly, family is everything. So enjoy that time together. It is a special time in life for them right now. So without further ado, I could pad for a lot longer and just talk about that, because it's much more joyful than this game. But we do need to get to this game from the weekend, round 7, Port Adelaide going over to Melbourne to take on the St Kilda Saints in what was a crucial clash. And there's an article actually on the AFLW website at the moment, talking about the 8-pointer clashes that are occurring and how it's kind of separating the table. And unfortunately, we ended up on the wrong side of one, though for 3 quarters it looked like we'd be okay. But after a fourth quarter storming comeback, a record-breaking comeback by St Kilda, unfortunately breaking our record from the the semi-final last year against Hawthorn. But 8-5-53 was St Kilda's score to our 6-6-42, an 11-point win for St Kilda. It vaulted them into the top 8, but also leaves us languishing a couple of games out of the 8 and really, really struggling to find kind of some hope going forward for the season. But though I will kind of compartmentalise all of that, kind of the frustrations out of the weekend with obviously the hope going forward. But in the immediate aftermath, it was a shocking loss. One that was quite frustrating, one that was foreseeable, unfortunately, with how I've played at times this year, and particularly our real phobia to playing fourth quarters, it seems, at times. It was one that, it does kind of highlight some of the issues that the 2025 version of the AFLW Port Adelaide machine has kind of had. These are foibles that we've been seeing all year, unfortunately, and it came to bear in the most heartbreaking and frustrating and disappointing ways on the weekend. So let's dive right into it. So let's start with that kind of last quarter, because I think that's kind of where a lot of the storylines out of this game comes from, and then I'll kind of look back at some of the other aspects of the game, and we'll give some credit to parts of the game in which we played well. And I'll start before we get into it just by saying that it is hard trying to kind of like compartmentalize my thoughts and kind of like boil them down to some kind of, singular narrative, because it is so hard, because this is a team that is one of the youngest in the competition. We're all cognizant of that. They are a team that we didn't, I think, first of all, there's been a few people that have been like, it was, final. We should have, would like to be stepping up from where we were last year. It has to be said, and I think Jamie and I have alluded to this at times, that we overachieved in the final series last year. We made finals, and kind of going into that Richmond, it was like, okay, let's win the Richmond one and go over and give it a good shake against Hawthorn. But Hawthorn should have put us to bed earlier in that game. They left the door ajar, and then we came back with what was at the time a record-breaking third quarter comeback. And that's the magic of footy. That's what can happen. You can miracle your way to championships, and I wouldn't have begrudged and would have been loved it if we could have done that this year. But objectively, if we went into the year thinking things, most teams are going to play kind of the way, certain teams that are the benchmark of the competition are going to continue to be that way and play footy around where their level is. We don't have a hope in hell of matching a North Melbourne at their best and stuff like that at the moment. It's just not, that is just objectively the truth. So this year it was going to be about kind of, finding some consistency, maintaining, I wanted to just make finals again. That was my hope, and then give it a good shake from there. Who knows, what can happen? But you're likely, dropping out at a certain stage to a side that's far superior to you in that moment. All the things that you can't cater for, such as injuries, like major players getting injured at certain other teams that might help level the playing field. Who knows? Those things you can never forecast. You can only forecast based on what you think a reasonable strength team will be. So this year was going to be about a year of hopefully a little bit of growth, kind of like finding, we found a level. We learned how to win last year and learned how to win against some decent teams. It was about, continuing that development and growth, and just hoping to find your way back into finals. I will say, apart from the North Melbourne loss, all of our losses have been heartbreakingly close. That's not an excuse, but it is also, when you look back at our team from 2 or 3 years ago, we're getting, a few close losses against bottom teams or close wins against bottom teams. But a lot of other teams are giving us having a comfortable time against us, more or less. We are making it tough on teams at times, but our consistency is letting us down. And that's what let us down in this fourth quarter. Again, we've had fourth quarter fade outs now against, whether Geelong was a back and forth one. It was close. Fremantle, we should have run over the top of them, but we let them get away at the end when we looked like we were going to run over them. But, the West Coast game, even Melbourne threatened to come back against us, and we just held on there. There's been patches there's been a lot of fourth quarter stuff this year that's been quite concerning. And it's just, it's an age-old adage, and you're not going to get true four-quarter, you're not going to be a dominant team for 4 quarters straight, rarely in AFL and any sport really. Any sport that goes back and forth like this in a free-flowing in nature. Basketball is a sport of runs. Soccer is a sport of periods of ascendancy, unless it's a true behemoth team against a real minnow. And even then, sometimes the minnow will have 10 minutes of play. Sports are ebbs and flows, and you've got to manage the ebbs and then go with the flow when you've got it. And that's really what our team. And in that fourth quarter, obviously, I mean, what's frustrating is we actually managed the first 4 or 5 minutes okay. Like when they were starting to get it, you could see they had a bit of a head of steam up, and we were going to try and push. But we got through the first. We gave up a goal, but beyond that, with 13 minutes to go in the game, we still had a 21-point lead. Like our score was 42, they were on 21. We had double their score, so they had to double their score and more to get ahead of us in the last 13 minutes of the game after only kicking 21 points for the first 3 and a bit quarters. So we'd managed okay, but you could see this is where maturity, experience, and all those things show. And when you're one of the youngest sides in the competition, I think the third youngest, I think it is, that we are, and particularly down back, we're very, very young. When kind of you get that stone rolling down the hill, collecting, a snowball. The snowball effect is what I'm trying to say. It is difficult talking to yourself because you don't have someone to handball off to when you're losing your train of thoughts. But we didn't have when things started to snowball a little bit for us. Senior heads went there, but it was, and that will come with experience. So that's where I will say, like, these are all things that in 2 or 3 years, if these players continue to develop and get another 20, 30 games in the legs in the next 2 or 3 years, I expect them to be far, far better for it because they're already quite a talented young group. But what was frustrating was watching how they kind of just didn't understand how to manage it. There was a little bit of shell-shocked stuff, like shell-shock World War I guy meme was just there in moments. Particularly, and it was just also application to the contest in moments where we were a bit flat-footed in our defense, a bit reactionary to what was going on. Obviously trying to manage the game out a little bit maybe, but when Brooksby takes a kick in, I think it's when it's going to come to Wardlaw's first goal. It would be a first goal because Brooksby takes a kick in and she gets it out to like the 55, like just 5 over the 50 arc. So she gets it safely out of distance, but it's almost an uncontested mark for a St Kilda player set up with that kind of forward press around the 50 arc. And you'd at least want to make a contest there. And she's clearly kicking that way. So why aren't we set up enough to either be, front and center to try to mark the ball, but at least if the ball drops short or something like that, you should at least 1 or 2 should be watching and being there for the drop of the ball. The St Kilda take an uncontested mark. We're just not switched on enough, focused enough on what's going on. Or I don't think they're unfocused. I just think they're still lacking the experience of understanding what to focus on and how to read a ball drop and what's going on in the game and just read situational football. And then that mark is taken uncontested. And then she kind of sits there for a second, assesses her options, and Jesse Wardlaw, leads out from, pretty deep in the forward line and just gets a free lead. And the commentators even mentioned it. That there was kind of like 2 Port defenders. I think Houghton was down there. One was like one, as a few of our forwards went back. Tahu went back later as well. And they mentioned that they kind of both tried to hand over responsibility. And that's not like a bad thing. Like, that's what you do in defensive structures is people switch defend, when players are moving around, you switch opponents and whatnot. But because the handover was happening in motion of someone leading out, it's just like they both no one actually went with her, and Wardlaw gets and it was a good kick into her. And that's what St Kilda were stepped up their disposal efficiency and just were really kind of locked in. But we allowed a little bit of that too by just not being structurally mature enough to kind of figure these things out on the run. And that, again, that's going to come with experience. That's one of those things I'll say is you just got to it's hard to kind of swallow that bitter pill, but just take that bitter pill and just go, there's better times coming. Fucking hope so. And I do believe that. But again, you don't know until you get to the better time. So, but this is a young group and they should be fine. But again, it's just like there is a little bit of me in those moments when I'm watching the end of these games and I'm getting frustrated. I'm just like, they need to grow the fuck up a little bit, because those things are obvious. They're basic football things, the structures and what you're doing to try to mitigate that damage, that potential damage, because you had a game-winning lead. Obviously, we know now, it's been well publicised since the game that it was a record comeback from a three-quarter time deficit. It's one of the 27-point deficit that St Kilda had at three-quarter time had never been overcome in AFLW history, previously beating the one that we overcome at the semi-final stage last year, as I mentioned earlier. So you kind of, it's I don't know. I think Arnell seems reasonably frustrated by the inconsistency, so I don't think it's a coaching thing. There has to be some level of how you're setting up, what the messaging is, a little bit, but I do believe it is just a genuine inexperience factor in managing that situation. Like the AFLW doesn't, as AFLW grows, like we've seen more and more bigger comebacks in that. Like AFL men's has a propensity for more fast-flowing comebacks these days than it ever has before because of the speed of the game and what teams can do. And we saw the St Kilda men's side break a record for fourth quarter comeback this year. So it's more doable than ever in both competitions. And as AFLW does grow exponentially from being a league that didn't exist to a league that has been now in its 10th year within a decade, those kind of things are going to occur in AFLW as well. It's going to continue. The speed of the game is going to continue to grow. It's going to be more talented. Like the talent across the 17 players on the field will continue to get better. These kind of things are going to happen. So players have got to. So our side maybe was thinking, at three-quarter time, well, we've got a 27-point lead. That's game-winning lead, and maybe there was just an attitude, maybe a subconscious attitude going into it. I don't think Arnell's ever going to sit there and say job's done. But there may have been a subconscious attitude that the job was more or less done. But it was also it was a swift couple of uppercuts that we copped in that kind of 3-minute barrage from Jesse Wardlaw and co. It was a very, very quick, but unfortunately it was a litany of mistakes on our end as well. I obviously mentioned the one, that first goal for Wardlaw, but I'm just getting into my notes here quickly. There was, I think her third goal that gets them within a goal was really, really frustrating because Wardlaw gets it was I can't remember, it was a younger player that gets a set shot from probably about 45 out. And the commentator's like, if she hits it well, she can make the distance, I think. But she doesn't hit it well, and it's clearly dropping to kind of the top of the square. And Wardlaw just floats in there and takes a mark. And so it's once again kind of like the situation that led to Wardlaw's first goal. There's a situational thing there where there was a lot of obviously we were starting to sit really deep and get a lot of players back behind the ball because we were at that point it was like, oh no, yeah, this comeback effort is on. We need to get some numbers behind the ball and try to mitigate this damage and make it quite difficult for them to score. And then you let fucking Jesse Wardlaw of all people, who just has turned it on pretty quickly, and obviously is a star talent in the league anyway, so you should probably be all across the game watching for her. She drops into the space at the top of the square and then takes a more or less uncontested mark again. And it's, 5 or 6 poor players in the immediate vicinity that just aren't watching the ball drop well enough. You're not watching the ball, you're flat-footed, I don't know. It's a systemic problem when you've got that many players down there that aren't watching it as quickly as what Jesse Wardlaw is, and it's just that's just desire and effort for the contest and a little bit reactionary versus a team. This is a thing that happens in sports: is teams that are chasing a game are going to take more risks and throw things more at it, but the teams good teams that defend those kind of things and win championships and whatnot. Again, we're not at that level, but you still want to start seeing signs of that growth and effort, and we just didn't have it in those moments. We were just so reactionary. No one was watching, focused enough on kind of the flight of the ball and all those things. And it led to another Jesse Wardlaw goal. And at that point, you could see, I think immediately after Wardlaw takes a mark, like Sachi Syme gets into a pushing contest with someone, which, hey, bit of biff, whatever. but it just looked like a bit more frustration. I'm not exactly sure why she didn't love it. Like get in there, such. But I think there was a little bit of frustration brewing. I think after the goals kicked, their kind of cameras focused on Tegan Jermack, who again I love her efforts. Unfortunately was did let herself get caught. That kind of started the onslaught at the start of the fourth quarter there, and that holding the ball call. She just needs to don't duck back goal towards goal and try to stiff arm a very, very good player. I would say that. I'm blanking on who it was. It's number 9 for St Kilda. I just can't think of her name right now. That's my bad. But yeah, and she had a chance to dispose of the ball, and she's going away from goal, and she's got which is good defensive stuff. But then she tries to stiff arm and as the commentator said, kind of like a wrestler, you give the arm, the player's going to take the arm, and a very, very good tackle. We do occasionally laud Jermack for her ability to take on the ball carrier, but so that's sometimes at half back and stuff like that when you've got a little bit of room to move and get caught holding the ball, it's not going to be an immediate goal scoring opportunity. Unfortunately, that was a moment where she probably let herself down. But yeah, going back to when Wardlaw kicked that goal that got them within a goal. You could just see the camera was kind of on Jermack, and she was gesturing in the direction of, I assume, where a poor player was. It was kind of, you could just see that she was, I'm not a lip reader, I have no idea what she was saying, but she was saying something. There was a little bit of a kind of like, what the fuck just what is going on kind of like tone, like look to what she was saying. And there was a bit of like, we need to, there was just the body language and how they were talking to each other. Understandably so, but you could see they were rattled and under the pump, and you could just see they weren't handling the situation well. Again, going to come with experience. It's going to come with age. They will get better at that. But that's what I'm just saying. From this game, you could see the inexperience telling, and the fact that they just weren't ready to deal with a fourth quarter onslaught kind of thing, and they should be at this point because they've had it happen a few times, and the only way you're going to learn is by learn how to deal with it is to deal with it. And unfortunately, we again failed in a test like that. One in which we gave ourselves a very, very good platform. Again, 27 points up at three-quarter time. Again, it hadn't been done before until, but all records are made to be broken, and Port Adelaide like to be a part of those efforts at times. So, yeah, just an incredibly frustrating one. Really, really frustrating fourth quarter. And again, I'm disappointed. I said in my caption for the full-time post that it was a choke job fourth quarter fade out, and I don't feel bad about saying, because I think you do have to criticize when criticism was warranted, and when you've given up a record lead in the fourth quarter, you've got to call it as it is, and whether it's harsh. I think when you've given up a lead like that in a position that you had in the game, that is a choke and a fade out. Both things doesn't mean it. Two things can be true. It's a choke and a fade out, and also it is a very, very big learning experience for a young side. If we were a Kangaroos level side competing for premierships and all that, then I'd be even more harsh in my assessments of it. But I do compartmentalise the very real belief that it was unfortunately still a choke job, regardless of the level of experience. But I do understand the level of experience involved, and yeah, two things can be true. We can criticize them for the fact that they should have still done better, but I can kind of sit there and go, look, I hope that that's something that they can learn from. There's no, you hope you never have to learn from an experience like that, but then if you do get one, then you at least go, shit, well, the next time it happens, it's like, okay, I hope they've gone back to the drawing board, talked about a few things about what's like a real good introspection from that result. It doesn't mean you have to, sit in a room and point fingers at each other. You just need to sit there and go, look, we're a young side. This was pretty shit. Let's look back at the tape here and what could we have done better in these moments? Have some honest chats between each other. Constructively critical about each other. You can do that and kind of have a good time with it. So you can just say, look, this is it's not a good time, but you can sit there and have a positive experience with it and have a discussion with it with each other in the right communicative space. It can be a very, very good learning experience, but one you don't want to have. But if you're going to have them, then you might as well try to utilize them as best as you possibly can, because that's just, we can't be seeing too much more of that. particularly against sides that we want to be getting we need to be getting these results against to try to make finals, and our chances of making finals are now getting quite slim. We're still in with a shot, but they are starting to get quite slim as this kind of goes on. One more note I want to make: why I try to, the captions on posts are frustrating to me, because I try to just put out a point of view, and then unfortunately, I mean, depending on what where you post them, but a few of the Facebook comments were just pretty crap from some people out there. If you're listeners of the show, like if you're the one that posted that, who cares about AFLW? It's all about AFL anyway. Shut the fuck up. You're an idiot. Archaic opinions like that are not welcome here. And, if you're a regular listener, and I think the name was No Fear or something like that, dumb name. If you're a regular listener, I don't think you are, but I'm just making the point for the general listener. AFLW is AFL. AFL Men's is AFL. It's all part of the AFL. If you don't like it being called AFL, the differentiation I make at times between AFL Men's and Women's for the point of differentiating discussions, and I don't think, and it doesn't matter. It's only a letter. It's ironically usually the crowd that hates woke nonsense, like being against certain slurs that then suddenly get bent out of shape about a letter. It's always very, very funny to me. But some of the comments were quite disappointing from people. A little bit, someone saying, "Oh, sack the coach. This happens every year." Well, that doesn't at all count in the context that this is a side that only started 4 years ago. We've had a very, very deliberate build through youth and all those things. So the reason this has happened for the first couple of years was because we weren't expected to win much, and we were building a young team. Last year we overachieved. This year is a bit of a plateau year, and unfortunately we're on the wrong end of a few of these close results. So educate yourself a little bit about where the team's at. Don't make dumb comments. Certainly, I'm open to the constructive criticism. Where I'm sure people are listening to this that I've exchanged messages with at times know that we certainly engage in a lot of constructive criticism, but just talking out of your ass about people involved at the club and whatnot, and saying crass things about the AFLW competition, that's not constructive at all. Doesn't really have any place in polite civil society where we're trying to just enjoy watching our sports teams play. So I just wanted to make a point about that quickly. I did. If you go and look, you're not going to see those comments. I hid a few of the worst ones. I left a couple there that were kind of there on the borderline, but a couple of the more crass, stupid comments I hid, so the world doesn't need to deal with that bullshit. Anyway, we'll go just take a quick pause here and then get into a little bit more of a few points I had on the game. I'll have a look at a few of the stats here just for a bit before we get into the votes and finish off the episode. Obviously, it's going to be a shorter one tonight with me just here, and it's a result that doesn't have a whole lot to write home about, I guess. A few of the stats are a bit concerning to me, and it's something watching the game as well. And probably the main stat, actually. And I'm just scrolling back up into I've got a few stats here on my sheet, but clearance numbers. Really intriguing, because if you look at total clearances, we win by 2. You look at stoppage, 24-17, the win was from stoppage. What was concerning to me, it's a real flip of the script as well. So St Kilda for the year averaged 5.5 centre clearances. We average 8. In stoppage, we averaged 17. They averaged 20. But then, as I just said, we had in this particular game, we had 24 plus 7 on our season average. They had 17 minus 3 on their season average for stoppage. But at centre clearance, they had 10, so plus 4.4 on their season average. We had 5 minus 3.1. Centre clearance was a real problem because, I mean, particularly in AFLW, and it's a real one. If you get the centre clearance and get some forward half time, that can be quite telling, and where you can generate some score from. We did have some good rebound like defensive to forward half change in that first quarter in particular, that little period of play, and a shout out to that. I will say, we talk about the fourth quarter as a bit of an abomination. We should have won the game. We were in a leading position for a while. You watch, because I am the masochist that I am, and do this for the podcast, I watched because I was working on Sunday, caught bits and pieces, but didn't catch the game properly. I've watched a full replay of a game that I knew was going to break my heart, which is just so much fun. So you're welcome. But watching the game, it is interesting watching these games back, pulling a little bit of the emotion away from it, knowing what's going on or knowing what's going to happen. Though you still end up getting frustrated. Watching that first quarter, St Kilda actually were very, very good and with a better side for a fair bit of that first quarter up until we got that little run of goals on. Obviously, get the first goal, which great work from Lily Patterson and Piper Window both. Obviously, Window coming back into the side after a bit of an injury layoff. Patterson debut year, great little link up there. Very funny because Patterson's kind of, not actually is kind of in line with Window, but I guess, if you handball the ball off, you're not going to get your too far penalty. You're going to take a bounce, you handball the ball off to the one next year, and Window's duly finished that one. But then between that, the time in forward half, I think, was about 65-35 to St Kilda in that first 10 minutes of the game. So they were the ones finding the ball in their forward half, getting more. I think they had more contested possession and uncontested possession in that first 10-minute window of the game. So the signs were there that St Kilda were kind of a little bit cleaner with the ball, finding a little bit more, just being able to get it in the forward half and generate some pressure. And they were getting some shots on goal, or shots they were getting smothered, or they're getting a shot on goal. They didn't really score much, I don't think, any points or anything, but they were getting kicks towards goal and just weren't quite getting the luck of the draw. So there was probably, if you look back at the game and bookmark it, you can actually look at the first 10 minutes and the last 10 minutes and go, St Kilda started better and finished the game better. We had kind of had the better of a 10-minute period at the end of the second quarter and end of the first quarter, and then a little bit of the third quarter as well. But yeah, we get that little run of goals on, which comes from some good defensive forward half chains. Great stuff there. But yeah, I was really concerned with the centre clearance stuff because Scholes obviously dominates at the hitouts. She gets 30 hitouts herself. We as a team have 36 hitouts to 12. So when you're getting 36 hitouts to 12, but they're still generating 27 to 29 clearances total, and in particular in the centre, they're getting a double advantage, which again, if you're getting the centre clearance, you're winning, 2/3 of the centre clearance and you're getting some forward half, you're immediately just generating some scoring opportunity from that. I'm a little bit concerned with how we're structuring up around the centre clearance, because we're not. I don't know. I'm not a midfield coach myself. I don't understand midfield, stoppage patterns and how to work with, and we're a younger side and we're often coming up against some good experienced players. So understandable of that. But we're just not getting players getting the centre clearance stuff is just a bit disappointing in a game like this, that we were going in as a team that, had seasonal better averages. I was just a little bit disappointed with their application at the centre clearance, getting to the ball drop, helping it. There was even one in the fourth quarter where Scholes kind of gets the tap down, and Janet, I think, gets it down. I might have ended up in St Kilda possession, or she ends up with the ball. Like she has a second effort tackle to try to win the ball, but then no one's there to help her, and it still ends up in a St Kilda centre clearance. It's just really frustrating just seeing kind of the lack of help in that area, and kind of the ability to get to, they were just reading the ball better off of her taps, and just they were bursting through with some pace. And whether it's just the lack, I think we do need to target some midfield, kind of elite midfield help in there. We love Dowrick, we love Window, we love Maloney, but they're just not. And we just need to there probably needs to be a little bit of a change in the focus on how the midfield coaching is working, because it's just that this game is really alarming to me how we structured up in the midfield for those in particular center clearance situations, and it's just concerning as well. If I just head to the player stats here for a moment, I'm just scrolling through on my other screen over here to see, but basically they have Ash Richards with 3 center clearances, Tiana Smith with 2. Then we go to Matilda Scholes has 2. Rebecca Ott, who was their ruck woman, had 2. And then gets down to Piper Window with 1. So the first Port Adelaide name that is on there that isn't our ruck in Matilda Scholes is Piper Window with a singular centre clearance. So they've got 5 between Richards and Smith before it even gets to Scholes on the list. So they've got 5 out of a couple of mids in and around the centre clearance stoppage, whereas we've don't have any mids beyond mids outside of the ruck with anything more than 1. So you just want to start seeing someone kind of take over in that role. Just get the hands on the ball, and we just weren't getting to the ball first out of center clearance, and that was affecting us. It was great that we to get numbers around the stoppage. We seemed to be able to win it a bit better in this one for some reason, which was just again goes against the trends a little bit. But look, our contested numbers were better in this game, but we still didn't at disposals. We again like every week we lost disposals by 52. Again, it came down to handballs because we were even. We actually had the same amount of kicks, 140 kicks apiece between St Kilda and Port, but handballs was. And just prepare yourselves, folks. Handball numbers was 67 for us and 119 for St Kilda. So fuck that shit. Shoot that fucking stat into the sun. Fuck that. I've got another stat involving that number for you in a moment, which is just going to just cherry on top of the shit sandwich of this review. Jamie's news aside. But yeah, I've just. Concerning numbers there. Our marking numbers in this game were kind of getting closer to our last, Jamie and I, when we were reviewing games last year, in some games we only have fucking 15 or 20 marks in a game. It was 28 marks in this game, but again, we talk about trying to look at seasonal average. And once you've got a decent data set when you're halfway into a season, you look at how teams are averaging going into a game and you try to mitigate where the areas where another team is dominant, you're hoping to just bring that difference back a little bit and just kind of hold them at bay in some of the areas they're elite at, and then you hope that the areas that you're good in you can dominate. Marks for the season, both teams are averaging 41 a game, but in this one they take 44. We take 28, 7 marks inside 50 to 3. They were just their disposal efficiency was better. Disposal efficiency was quite shocking actually for us. We were right on our season average at 54.6, but they went at 68.3. So 5% better than the season average. So we allowed them to have a little bit better disposal efficiency. Efficiency inside 50 was 51.4 to a paltry 27.3 for us. So again, just some numbers that reflect kind of just we got away from some stuff we're doing well. And then tackling as well, which was an area that they more or less just hit the season average, but again, because they had more disposals, it's just disappointing that we're still not finding a way to apply enough pressure. I think our pressure was okay in the game at times, but again, it's that fourth quarter probably skews a few of these numbers. 1%ers 38 to 26 in their favour as well. So add more tackles, more 1%ers. They were just their application to those kind of that situational stuff was just better, and particularly again in that fourth quarter. They were just better in the situation of football. They rose to the occasion whilst we kind of wilted. Again, I'll put a lot of it down to experience, and that will hopefully be something that in 2 or 3 years we'll look back on these moments and go, these were the experiences that have got us to a point where we're better in dealing with these things. But again, it doesn't help you much at the moment when you're feeling the pain of a season quickly slipping away, and you look at all these stats and just go, why? Why me? Why is this happening to me? That stat that I was talking about, just one more, just to really just give you a solid kick in the dick for your evening, or, well, it's my evening right now, but wherever you're listening from. And thank you for listening, as always. We do appreciate it. When the clock stopped in the fourth quarter after St Kilda had kicked their last goal of the game, which got the scoreline to what the final scoreline was. Obviously, final score was 8-5-53 to 6-6-42. That scoreline hit in the fourth quarter with 1 minute and 19 seconds left on the fucking clock. Oh, the world is cruel. The world is cruel. Now it's time for the CREEDCAST Player of the Year voting. Yes, votes. Always a weird one when you come out of a game so deflated like this one, but there still was, as always, some good performances in this one to write home about, thankfully. I'll read Jamie's votes out quickly, and then I'll read mine. They actually do have the same players. He obviously sent them to me, so they do have the same players in them. Order is slightly different, but I'll read them out, and then I'll get to a few stats for both of these players involved in our lists. So in Jamie's 1 spot, he has Molly Brooksby. In his 2 spot, he has Abby Dowrick. 3 votes to Matilda Scholes. 4 votes to Piper Window, and 5 votes. His best on ground goes to Sinead Goody. My votes, I have in the 1 spot, I have Abby Dowrick. In the 2 spot, I have Molly Brooksby. The 3 spot, I have Matilda Scholes. So that's actually the one spot that we yahtzed on. The rest were a bit different. But I have good. I was very found it hard to split the Sinead Goody and Piper Window for best on for me. So it was a real coin flip for me. But I just went with Window. Maybe the goal sealed it for me, or just the fact she'd just come back from injury and I think immediately put in a very good shift. So yeah, I had Piper Window as my best on. He had Sinead Goody, but I think both of them had a very good shake of being named best on. So yeah, those are the votes. So I had Derek in my 1 spot. I'm wanting her to just take that next little. I think it's tough in the way this team's playing at the moment. Just hoping that this year she's kind of plateaued a little bit. She's obviously still very good. So that's like I'm not super concerned. And her numbers are still very good. It's just we just want to see her getting a little bit more of it. She's probably not. Some of the kicks, like her disposal, probably if her disposal efficiency being a bit more up and had a bit more of an impact there, I might have maybe had her up a little bit more. But Jamie had her in the 2 spot as well, 35% disposal efficiency. But she had the 17 disposals, which was tied with Lily Patterson for best on. By the way, honourable mention to Lily Patterson. I was very close to putting her into the one of the spots because I think she had a very good game for being such a young player still. But back to Dowrick, she had the 9 tackles. She had the 6 clearances with 5 of them from stoppage, 1 from the centre clearance. As I mentioned before, you can figure that one out pretty quickly with the math when I say clearance numbers because beyond Scholes, there's only no player had more than 1 from the centre. So if you hear a clearance number, just reasonably assume they're mostly from stoppage. But if she had the 401 metres gain, she of course was right up there in the contested possessions as well with 12. A 1%er in there as well. But 9 tackles, 3 of those being inside 50 as well. But so that was Dowrick's stats. She still like applying herself very well, right up there every week. It's just I'm just wanting that next step to come from her because I think she's got that next step in her. So in my 2 spot I had Brooksby. I thought she was very good. Obviously I did mention she had that one kick that went out that ended up leading back to what started the Wardlaw onslaught. That wasn't her fault. She put the kick to a good spot, and I just don't think anyone kind of went to it, and it should be a little bit more accountability from teammates there. But she has had the 15 disposals at 66%. 5 of those contested. Obviously, she's playing out of the back line in her role. But she had the 4 marks for the game, a couple of tackles, 324 metres gained. She just continues to show us why we just got so excited for her so quickly when she came to the side last year. She's considering how young she is. She's got again one of those ones in that young back line that probably got a little bit rattled in the end there, but as a collective group more than any individual. She's still doing some great things for us. So who would in the 3 spot? Obviously Matilda Scholes. Her numbers. Obviously always elite in the hit-out game, 30 hit-outs, which she had 30 hit-outs when St Kilda as a team had 12. So she dominated there. She had the 4 clearances herself, obviously the only one to get multiple clearances out of the centre. She had 300 metres gained, 15 disposals at 40%. Obviously, she's often up there in the contested possessions as well with 12. What did she have a decent tackle number this one? She had a couple of tackles. So, but still, she's doing Matilda Scholes things. It's probably like her impact since that Gold Coast game has probably been felt a little bit less in the fact that we're just not doing enough to take advantage of her dominance in the ruck. I just think we're letting ourselves down a little bit by not taking more advantage. Like considering those hit out numbers to get so handily beaten at the centre clearance was quite disappointing. But there's no shame on her at all for her efforts in that area. So. In my 4 spot, I had Sinead Goody, obviously Jamie's best on ground. One of the major reasons I think that she was very close to getting to my best on and got Jamie's best on. I'm speaking for him, so you can ask him if you want. But I think the 75% disposal efficiency is very good for her with her 12 disposals. She had I think 10 contested, so she was running at contested possessions for most of her touches as well. She had an incredible 12 tackles as well. That's why I'm still debating whether I should have had her best on. Like that's just how tight it is. But she had, the 12 tackles, which is by far her best on ground. She had 282 gained. She had the 4 clearances herself. She had herself a very, very good game. Honestly, yeah. Still touch and go as to whether I made the right decision to put Piper Window as my best on ground. But I think her with her 16 disposals, 14 contested, which was best on for us as well. She had 3 intercept possessions. She had a couple 1%ers. She had the 6 tackles herself. She had 5 clearances. She had 300 meters gained. And she'd just come back from 4 or 5 weeks off from injury and is a second-year player. She's in her, 12th, 13th game, Piper Window. So she's, I think that was a very, very good effort. She obviously had the goal as well, which might have just tipped it over the line for me. I don't know. I think I might have used that as a little bit of a coin flip moment, like a little Anton Chigurh coin flip for this one. Piper Window is best on for me, and obviously between Shanae and Piper, they've both got 9 votes out of us for this week, which probably shows, maybe the how tight it was for me. I don't know if Jamie might have had Shanae clear best on. I was struggling to pick between them myself. I can still see, when you look at Shanae's disposal efficiency, the tackle numbers and some of those things, it's hard to argue against, but I think Piper applied herself very, very well. That inside contest is some of that sorely needed stuff that we had. We just didn't quite have enough going, in the tank to go through for that fourth quarter to get the win, which is ultimately very, very disappointing. And still, it's left a sour note in the mouth, I guess, going into this week with this one. Obviously, job just gets so much more tougher going into the rest of the season as well. I'll touch on the game we've got coming up now, I guess, as well, whilst also looking at the kind of ladder going forward as well. So we have a big Saturday night match this weekend as well. It's obviously a long weekend this weekend. We're playing the Western Bulldogs at Alberton Oval at 6:45 p.m. this Saturday evening. That is Australian Central Standard Time for one more night at that point, because come Sunday night, it'll be Australian Central Daylight Time with the clocks going forward on Saturday evening into Sunday morning. So, but that's neither here nor there, because 6:45 on the Saturday night, regardless, the clock's going forward, is going to be perfect timing. Going to be, I think, 28 degrees on the weekend as well. Going to be a nice warm weekend, so 6:45 at night with the sun still probably out at that point. But, the temperatures would be dropping by that point. There's no excuse not to get down to Alberton. Get around these girls as they take on the Western Bulldogs, who the Western Bulldogs are sitting just above us on the ladder with the same win-loss record, but just a 1.4% better percentage. They have been, they had lost 4 in a row up until the weekend when they beat Collingwood, who Collingwood are sitting pretty lowly on the ladder. But they handily beat them. So that is always a sign that they're some degree of separation away from them. So they will provide a challenge for us. We are favoured on Sportsbet, 141 to 282, so a decent favourability from the bettors, punters so far. Obviously, gamble responsibly. We are not sponsored or anything like that. I just always find it interesting that to see the betting odds, we don't not particularly supportive of it or anything like that. We just use it as a point of reference. We're right there in the mix with the Western Bulldogs on the ladder at the moment, but favoured in this one. But they did have a good win on the weekend, whilst you could say that we're probably going to be coming out of that win, our loss, with a lot of questions about ourselves and how we're going to handle these situations going forward. Western Bulldogs probably coming in a little bit more pep in their steps, so it could provide an interesting contest. As far as the ladder overall goes, we're obviously sitting in 14th with 2 wins on the board, 84% percentage. It's getting to a point of real separation from the top 9. The top 8. St Kilda who just beat us, just sitting outside of the 8 in 9th with their 4 wins with a percentage of 93. Basically, the top 8 are all sitting on percentages comfortably above 100. 9th down 90, 93, 95 and down. So there is a significant percentage difference between the 8th and 9th. So when you look at us being 2 games behind 8th, it's also 2 games and a decent amount of percentage behind 8th. So that's where these 8-point games getting really important, and why it's quite frustrating that we're losing them as well. And we need to, I don't not have much hope for us going into finals if we make them. Obviously, I just want to make finals. I think it's going to be good for the progress of this group to make finals again. But that is obviously we've left ourselves a hard hill to climb from this point. But, this is the perfect time to start. Would be a nice home match on a Saturday evening on the long weekend against the Western Bulldogs. So I do highly, highly encourage you to get around them. The one probably positive out of things at the moment, obviously the injury list is disappointing with the likes of JC having been announced to be out for a while, out for the season again with that knee injury, that re-injuring of the knee. But overall, the injury list has finally dropped quite significantly. There's just not that many names on there. Obviously, Janelle Cuthbertson out for the season, Caitlin Wendland out for the season with both with their knee reconstructions. Gemma Charity's a TBC with her knee. The one that's still somewhat concerning to me is Julia Teakle, who's probably the other one we'd really like to see back. I think we really are missing her presence up forward. Gemma Houghton's she kicks her a couple of goals, but with the fact we're throwing Woodland into the middle a little bit more when we can. Indy Tahoe going forward. By the way, shout out to Indy Tahoe, who kicked another goal, and they did mention in the commentary she is on 11 goals, 3 for the season now, which she'd only kicked 5 goals for a career coming into this year, so she's doubled her career tally in 5 or 6 games essentially, because she only got thrown out forward a couple of weeks into the season. So shout out to Tahoe, but I still do think we're missing that Teakle focus point up forward, and the fact that her foot injury has just been TBC for the last couple of weeks on the injury report. It's not like a test or anything. It's TBC. I'm wondering if there's maybe just some issues that she's been having, some setbacks, and they're just still not sure where she's at, which is frustrating and quite disappointing for her. I'm sure after last year, she would have been looking forward to coming into this year and really developing once again, because I think she took a big leap forward in her skills and ability and her role in this team last year, and it would have been nice to see her this year. And I'm starting to wonder if we will see her again this year, dependent. And, if we start getting ourselves back into final contention, maybe there is, but if we do just continue to kind of fizzle and maybe just eventually get mathematically eliminated from finals, what that Teakle one might end up being, because it's just that TBC's got me a little bit worried. But overall, that's 4 names in the injury report. A few weeks ago, it was 8 or 9, so it is good to have that availability back. Getting a few games into the legs of like Lauren Young and Lauren Young, Piper Window back in the side, your Lily Pattersons or whoever else is. It's important to get these young ones and get this experience into them. What else? I had another one. Another note. Oh, no, it's just a commentary thing, actually. I should have brought it up earlier, but it's not a fun one, but it was just in the spirit of the podcast when you talk about Dwayneisms. It wasn't Dwayne, obviously, and I can't think of the commentator's name. It was a bloke who was commentating the game, though. But when Jessie Wardlaw kicked her 3rd goal, at some point in the wake of the goal being kicked, he said that Port wished they had Jessie's goals. Which is obviously I wish I was Jessie's girl reference to the 80s classics. So I thought that was funny. I was frustrated as well, obviously, because it's unfortunately not a commentary moment that is positive for us, but I thought that was very, very good. So I enjoyed that one as much as I wasn't enjoying the actual events that led to that commentary moment. So I think that's about wraps it up for the episode. I apologize if I've missed anything I should have covered for this game, but I think more or less the story of this game was the 4th quarter and how we mishandled that. And I think I've kind of hopefully covered my thoughts on that we do need to be better already, but there is still it's got to be understood that this is an experience thing, and more experienced teams that won't happen to. You hope that it won't happen to a team where we're at in our development as well, but it did. And we've just got to go forward with it now. And I still have my criticism for it. I think they should have been better on the day. They let the situation overwhelm them, and unfortunately lost the game. So they can't go and do anything about it now, but just try to learn from it. So that's the big storyline from the game. Obviously, some of those stats that are still a bit concerning us across the season as well. But the big storyline of the game was really the 4th quarter fade out, and unfortunately we find ourselves in a precarious position as far as challenging for finals are concerned. But the only thing we can do now is move forward, and hopefully we can bounce back to winning ways this Saturday evening at Alberton Oval. So get around that game. Anyone listening that wants a ticket, I don't think I've got a couple of tickets, but I'll only be using one. So anyone else wants a ticket, I'm happy to share it. But obviously, just getting into the games isn't that expensive anyway. So just get on and buy a ticket if you want to go as well. Going to be a lovely evening out there at Alberton Oval. I'll be back on Thursday evening to do the squad show. Obviously, Jamie is on podcast paternity leave again, so I'll probably be alone. I'm going to try and tee up maybe a couple of guests at some point over the next couple of weeks, but I probably just won't have the time to sort that out for Thursday, and probably just for my own, just keeping my schedule safe for this week. Just I'll roll through that one alone. But yeah, once again, I'll finish off the podcast. Congratulations to Jamie and Lucy and Peyton, and of course, a new addition to their family in Noah. Super stoked for them. And yeah, if you happen to see him in passing at any point, give him a fist bump or whatever and say congratulations. It's a wonderful thing for them, and yeah, really stoked for them. So I'm going to raise my beer. If you're on the watching on YouTube, you can see me doing it. If you're listening, then just know that I'm raising my beer and taking a sip. Cheers to Jamie and his family, and cheers to all of you out there as well. Thank you for listening. As always, I think it's only fair that we let Jamie see us out of this episode. Can the pair. Oh, can the pair. Miss you, Jamie. Take care, everyone. I'll talk to you guys Thursday.